Okay, hi everyone again. So this session is about using generative tools to assist with software development. This is a lightning talk, 15 minutes by Vladimir. Let's welcome him to the stage, and there will be another session just after this without any breaks. So hope you will all stay for that one as well. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. That's going to be short and sweet. Using generative tools to assist with development. So, big round of applause for volunteers and organizers. Can't make conference without them. Thank you for coming as well. Without the audience, obviously there is no conference either. And this day, again, conferences is tough business to put together. So, I appreciate you coming here and listening to speakers. Quickly, I'm Vladimir. I'm based in Brisbane. I contribute to open source, and I'm a teacher as well. Let's talk about generative tools, right? So, any tools comes to mind when I say generative tool? ChatGPT, Copilot. How about Drush Generate? Yeah, let's go old school very quickly. If you haven't heard Drush Generate, there is a Drush, which is a tool that we use, command line tool. And the command line tool basically allows to generate a lot of stuff behind the scenes. You can generate the whole module, you can generate the service, you can generate the controller. And it's a great tool. If you haven't seen it, please go and check it out. I'm not going to talk about Drush Generate, but it's a great tool to have. So if you've doing some development, done some development, and haven't heard about it, this is a great tool. We can actually do a build module. There's a bunch of commands there, so you can see you can do hooks and all this stuff. But yeah, obviously, when I said generative tools, most of you thought AI. I don't call unintelligent things intelligent, because if you see my session yesterday, you ask how many use in DrupalSouth, and it would say 1. And then you say, are you sure? It would say, yeah, I'm pretty sure. And then if you say, I counted 3 use, it would go into some philosophical debacle, so trying to argue with you. How many use based on which perspective? So G stands for generative. So these things are made to generate things, and sometimes out of thin air, which is good sometimes, and sometimes not so. It's actually outdated. Let me find the... So, I think I deleted the updated slide, but anyway, I'll fill in the blanks. So ChatGPT, mostly the well-known tool, and same as Gemini for Google, we type things in, it comes back with you. Grok is built into social media called X Twitter, and I think it goes only for paid subscriber. Anthropic has, does anyone knows, I actually misspell Anthropic here. Does anyone knows what Anthropic model called? Claude, thank you. So that's what has been missing. GitLab has Duo, GitHub has Copilot. Those tools you need to pay for, and then you go inside GitLab or GitHub or use IDE, and it generates you the code. PHP Storm has AI assistant. There is a documentation for that as well. So those tools are meant to generate. Some are better with code than the other. I'm going to talk today from perspective of ChatGPT and my quick travel with it, trying to update the module. So have you heard about vibe coding? Yeah. If you have, yeah, here you go. If you haven't, there is a great podcast by New York Times called Hard Fork. And those two journalists, they talk about lately vibe coding. They actually give the audience a chance to say vibe coding. What vibe coding is, if you are not a developer and you decide to, or a developer and you decide you have a great idea, you ask AI tool to go and do it for you. And there are some great examples there. In the last podcast, it's actually great to hear, but it's actually scary because some of those people are medical professionals who building the tool without understanding the code, and not understanding the security implications, sorry. So anyway, let's use generative assistant. First, let's find the module to upgrade. I've been upgrading probably about 50 modules from 10 to 11, or helping in some sort of a way. So one of the modules I find interesting, because it wasn't just simply updating your YAML file, is a ClaimAV. ClaimAV, it's a virus scanner. And ClaimAV, it's a virus scanner, and Drupal module, also called ClaimAV. So it had a few deprecations. And the bottom issue is automated compatibility fixes, which generated by a bot, but it wasn't fully fixing it because there were a few issues, like it can't upgrade, this particular tool can't upgrade hook to a specific module. And I thought, oh, it would be great. So I went to ChatGPT and said, I need to upgrade Drupal 10 module hook to Drupal 11. Straight away, it gave me references. So for beginners, it's great. And now references come with the links, which is a new thing, at least was for me. So, and you can click on those links and kind of travel through to it. So it's actually referencing documentation. So it's saying to upgrade to Drupal 11, you need to ensure your environment meets the particular standards. So it basically just pulls those checklists from Drupal documentation. Right? And this is a hook I'm talking about. So hook, excuse me. So when you install Drupal 11 and you put this module, it would be working, but it wouldn't scan the files because this hook is no longer, it was deprecated and it was removed. So it wouldn't do anything, it wouldn't go into this code, right? So I went to the documentation, the API documentation for hook file validate, and it says, yep, on the bottom line you can see use file validator. So that's the first thing I asked ChatGPT. I was like, here's a hook. And I copy pasted the hook. And it said, okay, let's do the implementation for Drupal 11. Bam, it gives you a code, but if you'll see the code, it gives you the same hook, right? It just went and say, I did string translations straight, I did strict type checking, I did namespaces update. So it just beautify, purify, maybe improve the code a little bit, but there was not enough information to give to the tool, basically to say, hey, we actually need to completely remove it and replace it with something else. So I thought, okay, when I go to the documentation, there's a line that says in Drupal 10.2 it was removed, use file.validator service instead. Who knows what it means? 2, 3 people? 4? So majority of us wouldn't know what it means, right? We need to do some research or you need to find some examples. So I said, okay, let's convert the hook into a new class and just feed this information. So that's what I exactly did. I just copy-paste exact line, and it said, you're absolutely correct. Hook file validate is deprecated in Drupal 10.2. It was removed in 11. Here's how you can refactor your code to utilize file validator service. And it goes and creates a service, and it creates a class, and it creates file validator class, instantiates it from, implements the file validator interface. Obviously, people familiar with the code would know that this thing won't do anything unless you call it from somewhere else. But all it did, it just created a validate function. So it's basically created another validator which wouldn't be executed when you run the module. It would be just there. So it's kind of created a validator rather than process of validating the files. And it also gives you some, I found helpful information. Like, for example, I never use priority in services, and I found out about it from here. So it's something I actually learned. So I thought, there must be some other information I can give it if it can't find it itself. And on this page, on deprecation page for the Drupal 10, for this particular hook, there are 2 links. One link was actually change request. And that was the most useful thing for me. Like, it helped me before I actually start using generative tool, and it helped me here as well. It has a lot of information about the file validator service. It has this example, but example wasn't useful in my case because in here, it's actually say, here's how to validate manually with the code, not how to re-implement the hook. So in some cases, this example would be very useful. In my case, again, I didn't know what to do with it. But below that, that's probably the most useful piece of information in the change record. It says hook file validate is deprecated and replaced with file validation event that is dispatched through validate. Implement event subscriber and add your custom validation code so you can add it to the constraint violation list. So I said, let's convert the hook to the event subscriber, fed exactly this particular information, and voila, it actually implemented file validation subscriber that implemented event subscriber interface. Right? So for those not familiar with the event subscriber, you basically subscribe to a particular event, and you say which function should be implemented on particular event. In this case, on file validation event, implement the function on file validate, and then it generated the function. I got there myself without using generative tools, apart from violation bit, which is the last line on this thing. I couldn't find example of adding the violations to the list. It was actually not in documentation, and I was struggling going through core code and just trying to add it. So I thought that's actually something we need to improve. But we got somewhere, I put it in, and it started scanning files. So it gave me basically how to register the event subscriber in my services YAML. And obviously, this is very, very important, test the implementation. Because if I would put any of the two previous solutions, it wouldn't fly, right? It wouldn't work. So at least here, I installed locally ClamAV. It starts scanning, so I tested failing, tested the successful files. And and it actually gave few pointers and references, which I found quite compelling. Like, if you're a developer, it gives you this stuff in the chunks, but again, keep reading what it does, because sometimes it can steer away and again, generate something that doesn't work or not exactly what you need. So how easy was that? And I knew what I was looking for, right? So imagine junior developer trying to do that. In this podcast, one of the guys said it was exactly like working with a junior developer, the application that they built. So what are the next challenges for me? There is another issue. There's one person claiming this thing it works in version 10. Once they upgrade to version 11, there is no response. It just times out. And I ask, so if anyone is, I ask people if anyone else can verify it. I couldn't replicate it myself, and there's no one else came and said, yeah, I have the same issue. So I'm not sure if I should feed this guy problem to ChatGPT and how successful it would be actually trying to see. So I'm not there yet and didn't really have time enough to just have this random problem feed it to the ChatGPT. And improving help, I think, is on another of my list of tasks. In this deprecation note, there's a link to file validation interface. File validation interface doesn't have enough information for me as a developer. And if we'll go to the single function that it has here, there are no examples. So there is only a key and a value. So if you want to try to generate some useful example and actually commit it to the core, that would be great. Or I'll do it once I have some time. So that's my plan for this thing, actually improving the existing interfaces. And possibly copying this ClamAV example and putting it into the code documentation as well. So let's summarize. Do more pull request reviews. That would help you to read the code. I find it very, very useful, because once this thing generated you something, if you don't know what you're looking at, there's a chance you might be getting something that doesn't work, or something that actually breaks your software. Learn your tools. There's nothing wrong, and I was telling it to my students, there's nothing wrong on using ChatGPT, but we need to learn to read. A lot of people don't read error messages. Same goes with the ChatGPT, and this thing actually just can pop up so much stuff, and yeah. And do not rely blindly on generative solutions. Yeah. And use them wisely. I already mentioned Hard Fork podcast. There's this particular podcast, which is a couple of weeks ago. They were talking with Anthropic CEO, and he has some interesting insights how they test the API calls, generating API calls, and just for the software development. So have a listen if you're interested. Thank you. I think we don't have any questions, but come see me if you want to talk more about it, and I'll pass it on to Carl.